Hi, everyone. Welcome to the All Things Amyloid podcast, where we feature patients, caregivers, and clinicians who discuss amyloidosis, a rare and incurable disease. Amyloidosis occurs when the body builds up abnormal amounts of misfolded amyloid protein, which can lead to serious and life threatening outcomes. I'm your host, Mackenzie, an amyloidosis patient and founder of Mackenzie's Mission. Our goal for this podcast is to raise awareness and share firsthand what it's like to live with this disease, to care for those affected by it, and to treat it. We hope this leads to earlier diagnosis and start of treatment, which will improve patient lives. Life is filled with uncertainty and can be altered in an instant, resulting in life changing implications. In today's episode, we'll be talking with hereditary amyloidosis patient Sean about his diagnosis and how it impacted just about all the aspects of his life. We'll talk about the changes he chose to make and how they've defined a new normal life for him. Hi, Sean. I'm looking forward to our discussion today. As
Hi,
it
how are you
shows that
doing?
good. How are you?
Good, good.
So I'm looking forward to having you today. This is a really interesting topic that I think is relevant to really all of the amyloidosis community. Hearing about your journey, the choices you've made along the way, and how your life has evolved for the future will give us just one patient's example to learn from. So let's
Uh,
start at the point of diagnosis, learning about this disease, your symptoms, and prognosis.
I was diagnosed at the end of February in 2019 by Dr. Rodney Falk at the Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. Um, Getting the diagnosis was actually a huge sense of relief for me because I had symptoms building in, I'd say, between 6 and 7 years prior to the diagnosis. So getting diagnosed and having an answer was actually a huge sense of relief for me. Um, when he gave me the diagnosis, I was made aware of the gravity of the situation. He had explained to me that there was a new therapy drug called Onpattro that had just come out of trial. I guess it was about a half a year prior to that, and that he wanted to stop me on that. So I mean, I was a little skeptical. It's a brand new drug, so I was kind of intimidated or whatnot. So I asked him. I said, what if I chose not to to use this drug? What would the other path be? And he explained to me, quite frankly, he said, probably the disease will be terminal in 2 to 3 years. So, needless to say, that made the decision easy for me. So I started taking the Onpattro about a month or so after my diagnosis. At the time of diagnosis, I was pretty ill. I was unable to work. There were other stressors going on in my life. Uh, Obviously, not able to work, so I had a professional stress there, a source of income and whatnot, and also some personal things going on in my life. So it was a pretty tough time for me, and I was actually at the time of diagnosis or shortly after he diagnosed me, I did spend about 3 to 4 weeks in the hospital and then in a physical rehab. Um, but I am pleased to say that once we did start the therapy on the Onpattro, um, in a pretty short period of time, it was evident that the drug was stopping the disease progression.
That's wonderful to hear. I can certainly understand kind of how the stress builds and kind of in that uncertain time where you don't quite know what's going on and then how it transitions to almost a little bit of a relief when you finally get a diagnosis you can hang your hat on. So now that you're kind of through that challenge, how is your life changed now that you have a diagnosis?
Oh, it's funny. So at the time of diagnosis, I actually was living overseas. So I was divorced and single at the time. I was living overseas, so I had to move back home uh, to get my treatment. So I had sold my house and whatnot, so I ended up moving back and for a period of time living with my brother and my sister-in-law. Um, so I started the Onpattro. I guess it was, yeah, I guess April of 2019. And as the year progressed, towards the end of 2019, my health started improving. So over about a 4 to 6 month period, um, certainly the disease wasn't progressing, and I started feeling a little bit better. So I decided that I wanted to try to resume my career. Um, so in early 2020, two things happened. I attempted to resume my career, and also I met and started dating, who soon would become my wife, Robin. So I started working in early 2020, and that didn't go real well. I worked for, I guess, 5 or 6 months, about a half a year, and it became quite evident that due to the disease, one of the things the disease does to you, especially if it's affected your cardiac symptom, which it has with me, is you get easily fatigued. So I found that the grind of going to work, and the job that I had involved shift work too, so some back shift hours and whatnot, and it really was kind of turning my health around. So it became evident, and I guess in May or June of 2020, so about a half a year after working, that the realization that I was not going to be able to continue with my career. And that really, I got to say, this is kind of, I guess, maybe the low point of my story, but it gets better because I might consider my story to be a success. That had a profound effect on me, the fact that I couldn't continue my career because, that was a huge chunk of my identity. I worked in the nuclear power industry as a nuclear reactor operator for over 30 years. And I was no longer able to do that. So, I mean, it definitely had an emotional impact on me. And I will share with you that it got to the point that I did seek out professional help, kind of in dealing with the emotions and struggles that I had with it.
Yeah, I can only imagine the kind of the frustration and the emotional toll it takes when you kind of come to the realization that ultimately you aren't able to do something that you're passionate about, and something that's been such a large part of who you are and what you do. But I think it's nice,
Absolutely.
one door may have closed, but it sounds like one certainly opened. And I kind of want to go back a little bit to having Robin in your life, and how did having her contribute to sort of dealing with this emotional challenge that you were going through at the time?
It's unbelievable. Robin, and I know you know her. uh, Robin is an incredible person. So Robin literally came into my life, um, and started dating me. Um, and she knew I had this disease, and this was a time period where I wasn't doing well with it, and it really, amazingly, she was all in. Uh, and I could have easily, I easily could have understood if someone, didn't want to take this on, but that wasn't the case. She did. So she became, um, my rock, if you will. She still is to this day my foundation, and I fully expected, you know, uh, that it would become too much for her, and again, fully would have understood had she not wanted to stay in the relationship. But the exact opposite happened. We fell in love. We're soulmates, and again, she's my foundation to this day.
That's so wonderful, and
Yeah.
just kind of heartwarming to know that something so wonderful can come out of something so difficult and so
Oh,
challenging. So
absolutely.
it sounds like a truly pivotal moment in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I could have stayed negative, and nobody's perfect, and I certainly, like most people, you can have a tendency to look at things negatively from time to time or become cynical. So I'm not going to say I didn't have, you know those type of emotions as well, but having Robin in my life and whatnot, it just certainly allowed me to kind of embrace life, embrace the change that I had to make out of necessity, and really craft a new life for myself.
Yeah. So for the viewers out there, give us an answer. What did you end up choosing?
Yeah, I chose to look at things positively. Um, it's funny. When I go out and do my speaking, I always tell people that this disease presented me with three opportunities. The first, had I not been diagnosed with the disease and had I not had to return, I was living over in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. Had I not had to return back here for treatment, I never would have met my wife, Robin. So there's the first opportunity. So when something bad happens, who knows? There could be certainly light at the end of the tunnel, and there certainly was there for me. The second opportunity is I realized I had to reinvent myself. I could no longer kind of do the things I did before. Um, First of all, a little kind of a preamble to this, if you will. So I grew up fairly athletic. I played ice hockey as a kid, played up into my adult years in men's leagues and whatnot. And I also would go, was a regular at the gym. I liked lifting weights and whatnot. And I identified that I was no longer going to be able to do those activities, or certainly not to the extent that I used to. So I would have to find a new um, kind of recreational activity, if you will, to kind of take the place of that. And it's a funny story. One day I was at Robin's apartment and I was just sitting there at the desk at her dining room table, and I started doodling. And I realized, hey, wait a minute, uh, I seem to have a talent for this drawing stuff. So it's funny. I have Uh, in the interim, it's kind of taken off, and I guess I would call myself a fairly accomplished amateur artist. I'm certainly not a professional artist, but that's a huge thing in my life right now is the creative aspect of my life. I'm looking right now at an outline of a sketch that I just started yesterday. Um, Also, I just got a tattoo on my arm, uh, and I'm not the tattoo artist, but the artwork that the tattoo is, I actually did that myself.
That's
So the
cool.
first opportunity was to reinvent myself and find a new activity like that. So I've taken up artwork. I've also taken up, I love to cook, so I've taken up cooking and also some gardening and growing of vegetables and whatnot. So kind of a different path for me to go down as far as personal interests are concerned. The third opportunity, and this is so important, and this is why we're all doing what we do here. Um, I identified that, I had a science background, so I kind of, I guess, I think can understand the disease, perhaps a little better than the average, maybe layperson that has the disease. And also, in the second half of my career, um, I was an instructor, a trainer. I trained people to operate reactors. So I was used to getting up in front of people and talking. So I had, reasonable public speaking skills. So I identified, hey, how can I give back? What can I do to help this cause and help find cures and advancement and treatment for amyloidosis? So that's how I ended up through a series of connections led me to getting in touch with your mother, Deb, and joining the Amyloidosis Speakers Bureau. So that's what I spent a lot of my time doing now is traveling around the country and talking to med students at hospitals. Um,
Yeah, it
so-
sounds like certainly a lot of wonderful things
yeah,
have
absolutely.
have come out of this, right? And so I guess it's sort of a leading question, but maybe give us a little bit of a glimpse into how you feel about and how you view your life today.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, plain and simple, I've been given a second chance.
Yeah.
Um, had I not been, diagnosed in time, it would have been fatal. And had we not been at a point now where there are these these great medicines, uh, to at least halt the disease progression, and hopefully in the near future this thing's going to be cured.
I hope so.
Yeah, but I've been given a second chance, and I guess it's made me more passionate about everything that I do and experience in life.
Hmm.
Um, I already talked about the three opportunities that I had, but it also in general, I think I tend to look for the best, or the best in things and the best in people, perhaps a little more so than I used to. And also, I find it easier to seek out and find uh, joy in life, really, by supporting others, and a big part of that is through the work that we do with the Amyloidosis Speakers Bureau.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess sort of in closing here, really targeted for those who may be listening who find themselves in a similar position, right? They're just, starting their journey. They may not have a diagnosis, or they have a diagnosis and they don't really know to go where to go from here, but they feel like they're at a crossroads. Is there any sort of advice or kind of words of wisdom that you would want to share with them? You would want them to know?
Yeah. So I guess life is a journey, right? You never know where it's going to head. And I often quote the famous baseball player Yogi Berra. Uh, when life, when you hit a fork in the road in life, take it.
Yeah.
Right? So, meaning you can either look at things negatively or positively,
Yeah.
and I think it's really important that you develop a sense of optimism, because what seemed to me at the time of diagnosis, perhaps maybe something that was insurmountable. It really wasn't. So, yeah, so develop a sense of optimism. Uh, Take that positive fork in the road, and try to look for new opportunities to reinvent yourself, different ways you can find happiness and a sense of purpose. And I certainly the work that we're doing with the Speakers Bureau, that there's a selfish component to that too,
Yeah.
right? It certainly gives us all a sense of purpose. So that's a great thing right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think those are wonderful words, and it was wonderful having you with us today, Sean, to share some of your words of wisdom here. So
Well,
thanks for joining us.
thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Of course. So, I think it's nice because today's discussion is really relevant to the entire amyloidosis community. I mean, you could even argue the whole rare disease community. So, it just highlights that everyone has their own journey, but it's energizing and inspiring to hear how you've kind of embraced your disease and you've transformed your life to find such joy and purpose in it. And it's truly inspiring. So thank you for sharing with us.
Oh, thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you for listening to the All Things Amyloid podcast. If you find our podcast informative, please follow and share it with others. If you want to learn more about the work we're doing at Mackenzie's Mission, please visit mm713.org. We'd also like to thank AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals, Alexion Pharmaceuticals, Alnylam Pharmaceuticals, and Bridge Biopharma for their sponsorship to help raise awareness about amyloidosis. We hope you stay tuned for future episode drops. Thanks for listening.